I slammed on my brakes so hard my coffee spilled all over the passenger seat. My driveway, my own driveway, was blocked again. Not by a delivery van, not by a friend's car for a quick visit, but by her. The same gaudy red sedan with the tacky rhinestone license plate frame and a sun-faded "Boss Babe" sticker peeling off the bumper. I didn't need to double-check. I knew exactly who it belonged to. Karen, my neighbor who seemed to think the world was her personal parking lot. Before start the story, please comment down from which country are you watching, like the video, and don't forget to subscribe. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my jaw so tight I could hear my teeth grinding. This wasn't a one-time thing. Oh no. This was the 4th time in 2 weeks. The first time I figured it was a mistake. Maybe she had guests and ran out of space. I left a polite note on her windshield. "Hi, this is my driveway. Please don't park here. Thanks." No response, no apology, just her car gone by morning. The second time I knocked on her door. She answered in a leopard print tracksuit, holding a smoothie, and gave me a look like I was interrupting her day. "Oh, I'll move it soon," she said, waving me off like I was a kid asking for candy. The third time I caught her pulling in as I got home. I asked her nicely, again, to stop. She smirked, said, "It's just a driveway," and drove off like she'd won something. But this was war. I sat there staring at her car, my spilled coffee soaking into the seat, and felt something snap. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. I threw my car into park right behind hers, blocking her in so tight she'd need a miracle to get out. Then I grabbed my phone and dialed the number I'd saved after her last stunt. A local tow company. "Hi, yeah, there's a car illegally parked in my driveway," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through me. "Can you send someone now?" The guy on the other end didn't even hesitate. "Sounds like a pain. We'll be there in 20. I leaned back, arms crossed, and waited. Part of me wanted to storm over to Karen's house and bang on her door, but I knew better. She'd just play the victim, bat her fake eyelashes, and spin some story about how I was the problem. No, this time I was going to let actions speak louder than her whining. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, a tow truck rumbled down the street. The driver, a burly guy with a beard and a no-nonsense vibe, hopped out and gave me a nod. "This the one?" he asked, pointing at Karen's sedan. "Yup," I said, trying not to grin too obviously. He got to work, hooking up her car with the kind of efficiency that said he'd dealt with plenty of Karens before. I stood on my porch, sipping what was left of my coffee, when her front door flew open. There she was, Karen in all her glory, hair in a messy bun, clutching a phone and a glass of wine, even though it was barely 5 p.m. "What the hell is going on?" she shrieked, storming toward us. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you were going to move it soon, right?" Her face turned a shade of red I didn't know was humanly possible. "You can't tow my car. This is my street." "Your street?" I said, keeping my tone calm. "Last I checked, this is my driveway." The tow truck driver didn't even look up, just kept working. Karen spun toward him. "Stop. I'll sue you. I'll sue everyone." He shrugged, barely pausing. "Lady, it's on private property. You're lucky he didn't call the cops." She whirled back to me, pointing a manicured nail in my face. "You're going to regret this." I smiled, leaning against the porch railing. "See you at the tow yard, Karen." Her car was lifted off the ground in record time, and as the truck pulled away she just stood there, mouth open, wine sloshing in her glass. For a second I felt a twinge of guilt. Nobody likes being that neighbor, but then I remembered the past 2 weeks of her nonsense. This was her doing, not mine. I thought that would be the end of it. A lesson learned, maybe a grudging truce. Boy, was I wrong. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd won a small battle. My driveway was clear, the sun was shining, and I could park without playing Tetris. I grabbed my keys to head to work, but when I stepped outside my stomach dropped. Karen's sedan was back, parked at an angle so it blocked both my driveway and part of the street. She'd gone out of her way to make it impossible for me to leave without scraping her car or driving over my own lawn. I stood there, staring as my neighbor across the street, Mrs. Lopez, poked her head out her window. "She did it again, huh?" she called, shaking her head. Mrs. Lopez was a sweet older lady who'd lived here forever and had her own Karen stories. Like the time Karen reported her for excessive Christmas lights. "Yup," I said, pulling out my phone. "Any chance you saw her do this?" Mrs. Lopez nodded. "Oh, I saw her. Pulled in at 6 a.m., bold as you please. That was all I needed." I called the tow company again. "Same car, same driveway," I told them. This time they laughed. "She didn't learn, huh? We're on our way." While I waited, I installed a cheap security camera I'd been meaning to set up for weeks. If Karen wanted to keep this up, I was going to have proof. The tow truck arrived just as she stepped outside, this time in a neon workout outfit, holding a yoga mat like she was auditioning for a fitness commercial. She saw the truck and dropped the mat, sprinting toward us. "No. You can't keep doing this," she yelled, waving her arms like she could stop the tow with sheer willpower. The driver, the same guy from yesterday, gave her a bored look. "Lady, you parked on his property again. What did you expect?" She turned to me, eyes blazing. "This is harassment. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," I said, holding up my phone. "I've got a camera now. And Mrs. Lopez saw you this morning. Want to explain why you keep trespassing?" Her mouth snapped shut, and for a second I saw something flicker in her eyes. Panic, maybe? But then she doubled down, pulling out her phone and dialing 911 right there. "Yes, I need an officer. My neighbor's stealing my car," she cried, loud enough for the whole street to hear. The tow truck driver snorted, shaking his head as he finished hooking up her sedan. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for the inevitable. Sure enough, a police cruiser rolled up 10 minutes later. The officer, a tired-looking guy who probably dealt with this nonsense daily, stepped out and looked at us like we were a bad sitcom. "What's the problem?" he asked, glancing at the tow truck already pulling away. Karen launched into a performance worthy of an Oscar. "He's targeting me. He's towing my car for no reason. I just parked there for a minute." The officer turned to me, eyebrow raised. I kept it simple. "It's my driveway. She's parked here 5 times in 2 weeks after I asked her to stop. I've got a witness and footage." He sighed, clearly not in the mood for drama. "Ma'am, you can't park on someone else's property. If it's his driveway, he can tow you." Karen's jaw dropped. "But it's just a driveway. He's being unreasonable." The officer didn't even blink. "Get your car from the tow yard. Don't park here again." He handed her a card with the tow company's info, got back in his cruiser and drove off. She stood there, clutching the card, looking like she'd been slapped. I didn't say a word, just went inside and locked the door. Round 2, me. For a blissful 3 days my driveway stayed empty. I started to think maybe Karen had finally gotten the message. Then I came home from work to find a pile of dog poop smeared across my welcome mat. Not an accident. Someone had gone out of their way to spread it like a disgusting art project. My security camera caught the whole thing. Karen, wearing gloves and a scarf over her face like a cartoon villain, scooping poop from a bag and smearing it on my porch at 2 a.m. I was livid, but I wasn't stupid. Confronting her would just give her ammo to play the victim again. Instead, I cleaned up the mess, saved the footage, and started planning. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. The next day, I printed out a still from the video, clear as day, showing her in the act, and taped it to her mailbox with a note. "Next time, I'm sending this to the HOA and the police. Stop now." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. An hour later, she was at my door, banging so hard I thought she'd break the frame. I opened it just enough to see her, red-faced and holding the printout. "You think you can scare me?" she screamed, shaking the paper. "I think you should stop vandalizing my property," I said, keeping my voice even. "This is fake." "You edited it," she sputtered, which was almost funny given how clear the footage was. "Karen, I have the full video. Want me to post it online so the neighborhood can weigh in?" That shut her up. She crumpled the paper, threw it on my porch, and stormed off, muttering about lawyers and lawsuits. I picked it up, added it to my growing file of evidence, and called Mrs. Lopez. "You ever deal with Karen pulling something like this?" Mrs. Lopez laughed. "Oh, honey, she once dumped her grass clippings on my lawn because I planted roses she didn't like. She's unhinged. Talk to the HOA. They've got a whole binder on her." That was news to me. I made an appointment with the HOA president, a guy named Dave who looked like he'd rather be golfing than dealing with neighbor disputes. I brought my footage, the printout, and a timeline of every incident. Dave watched the video, rubbed his temples, and sighed. "She's been a problem for years. Parking, complaints, petty vandalism, you name it." "So why hasn't anyone stopped her?" I asked. He shrugged. "She pays her fines, cries to anyone who'll listen, and keeps going. But this." He tapped the footage. "This is actionable. I'll send her a formal warning. Keep documenting." I left feeling hopeful but not naive. Karen wasn't going to back down just because Dave sent her a letter. The HOA warning must have hit a nerve because Karen went quiet for a week. No parking, no poop, no banging on my door. I started to relax, thinking maybe she'd moved on to torment someone else. Then I got a letter in the mail, not from the HOA but from Karen herself. It was typed, official looking, and claimed I was harassing her by spying with my camera and threatening her safety. She demanded I remove the camera and pay her $500 for emotional distress, or she'd take me to court. I laughed so hard I almost cried. Did she think I was born yesterday? I scanned the letter, added it to my evidence folder, and called a lawyer friend, Sarah, for advice. She took one look and snorted. This is nonsense. She's got no case. Countersue for trespassing and vandalism if she tries anything. Armed with that, I decided it was time to end this once and for all. I checked my camera footage from the past week and hit the jackpot. Karen had parked in my driveway again, snuck out at night to scatter trash on my lawn, and tried to unscrew my mailbox. Every move was crystal clear, time-stamped, and undeniable. I called the tow company one last time. Same car, same spot, I said. And I'm pressing charges this time. The tow truck arrived at dawn, just as Karen was leaving for her morning jog. She saw the truck and froze, her neon headband practically glowing in the early light. "You've got to be kidding me," she yelled, sprinting toward us. The driver, my bearded hero, didn't even flinch. "Third time this month, ma'am. You're making my week." I stepped outside, holding a USB drive with all my footage. "Karen, I'm done. This goes to the police and the HOA today." She laughed, but it was nervous, shaky. "You're bluffing. You can't prove anything." I held up the drive. "Want to bet?" That's when the police cruiser pulled up, called by Mrs. Lopez, who'd seen Karen's car and figured things were about to escalate. The officer, a different one this time, listened as I laid it all out. The parking, the vandalism, the threats, the footage. Karen tried her usual song and dance, claiming I was the aggressor, but the officer wasn't having it. "Ma'am, I've seen the video," he said, nodding at my phone. "You're trespassing and vandalizing. You can explain it in court." Her face went white. "Court?" "Yep," I said, handing the USB to the officer. "I'm pressing charges." The tow truck hauled her car away, and the officer gave her a citation for trespassing and property damage. She stood there, silent for once, as the reality sank in. I didn't stick around to gloat. I had a driveway to enjoy. The fallout was swift and glorious. The HOA fined Karen heavily for repeated violations, and the neighborhood grapevine lit up with stories. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd terrorized. One guy said she'd reported his dog for barking once. Another neighbor caught her stealing their Halloween decorations. The more people talked, the more Karen's reign of terror unraveled. A month later, I came home to find a for sale sign in her yard. No fanfare, no goodbye, she just packed up and left. Mrs. Lopez threw an impromptu block party to celebrate, and half the street showed up with stories and laughter. The new neighbors, a quiet couple with a toddler, were a breath of fresh air. They even brought me cookies to say hi. Sometimes, late at night, I'd check my camera footage out of habit, half expecting to see Karen sneaking around. But she was gone for good, her red sedan and "Boss Babe" sticker just a bad memory. My driveway was mine again, and so was my peace. As I sat on my porch, sipping coffee without a care, I couldn't help but smile. Karen had picked the wrong neighbor to mess with, and I'd made sure she'd never forget it.